In 2015, Matt and Ross Duffer began filming of their soon-to-be a smash hit Netflix show called Stranger Things. This was off the back of them originally pitching the idea and script of the show to various networks. Originally, this show was called Montauk, and besides taking inspiration from the likes of Stephen King and the 80s horror genre and as a whole, Montauk was based on a real location, a top-secret military base on Long Island, New York, with urban myths and legends of underground experiments on kids to develop psychic powers like mind control and telekinesis. Legend says that under this base are top secret tunnels leading to various laboratories and rooms where these clandestine psychic experiments took place, involving interdimensional portals and remote viewing. Many horror movies and TV shows are based on myths and legends. After all, that's where all the good stories come from. So it makes good sense to base your new TV show on such things. I mean, it is just a story, right? On the afternoon of July 12, 2008, local police got a call to head over to Ditch Plains Beach in Suffolk County, New York. Apparently, there was a report about a body being found there. When they arrived, officers had to break through the small crowd of curious onlookers. What they found washed up with the morning tide wasn't a human body, thankfully. But it wasn't any animal they or the witnesses had ever seen either. It appeared to be a creature about the same size of a big dog, but without a single hair on it. Instead of a typical animal snout, it had these large incisors sticking out beneath what looked like a beak. As the police worked on recovering this strange looking creature, word of the incident spread like wildfire through the local community. Over the next few days, journalists from all sorts of news outlets flocked to the nearby towns, asking residents for their thoughts on what the heck this carcass could possibly be. Most of the townsfolk had their own take on the matter. Some figured it was probably just a raccoon or coyote that had bloated and decomposed after spending some amount of time in the water. But then there were others who had wilder theories. They whispered to reporters about the possibility of it being some freakish hybrid, maybe cooked up in secret experiments over at the Plum Island Disease Centre nearby. A few folks even got jittery and dodged any questions, hinting that this mysterious critter didn't belong to these parts. When journalists pressed for more information, these nervous types pointed them towards an old military complex a few miles northeast of the beach. But beyond that, they clammed up, warning the reporters about the place's dark past, hinting at some gruesome crimes. It was like they wanted to keep their distance from that place, like it was a real-life horror story. For those reporters who gave any credence to these shaky claims, they would make a quick drive up the coast and find themselves at Camp Hero State Park. Within the sprawling boundaries of this stunning natural landscape lies the remnants of a US naval base, with roots tracing back to the height of World War II. See, back in 1942, when the war was still raging, Camp Hero was erected to safeguard local maritime traffic from the deadly assaults of German U-boats. To throw off any potential snoops sympathetic to the enemy cause, they went to great lengths to disguise this base as a quaint fishing village. Concrete bunkers adorned with painted-on windows and doorways, and fake chimney stacks stuck on to mimic the look of local houses and shops. After the Axis powers threw in the towel, Camp Hero shut down shop for a wee bit. But with the Cold War looming large, it got a makeover and was reborn as the Montauk Naval Air Station. Its new gig? Radar tracking, playing a key role in a national early warning system aimed at warding off Soviet nuclear bombers. This setup lasted well into the 80s, when they finally decided to pull the plug on the base as part of a wider decommissioning effort. Instead of tearing down the massive 90-foot radar dish that towered over the coastline, the authorities decided to just let it be, using it as a landmark for local shipping routes. Meanwhile, the abandoned building slowly crumbled away, left there to rot. Eventually, the Parks Authority stepped in and sealed off the area entirely to keep the public out and prevent any potential accidents. For about 2 decades, the station's pivotal role in wartime defence faded from memory. until the late 1990s, when a man named Preston Nichols started making waves. He was out there giving interviews and hawking a book that he had penned, unveiling a dark and shadowy history of the Naval Air Base. According to him, it wasn't just a military outpost, it was ground zero for some covert and sinister operations orchestrated by US intelligence agencies.
Well, time is essentially like a real estate. In other words, as you and I can walk through real estate from point A to point B, all time coexists, and it's possible to go from point A to point B if you can find the path to go directly from. Some people believe it's taking the linear timeline, bending it over next to each other, and creating a wormhole or a punch-through from time A to time B.
Nichols claimed to have been part of a top-secret project aimed at gaining an edge over foreign leaders and governments. But it all went south, and the powers that be shut down the Montauk facilities, covering up any evidence of the alleged tragic events that unfolded there. At the core of Nichols' bombshell allegations was a clandestine CIA mission dubbed Operation Paperclip. This covert operation, he claimed, went down in the twilight of World War II, with CIA agents and army intelligence swooping into mainland Europe to snatch up top Nazi engineers. Their goal? Well, was to give America a wee leg up in post-World War and boost its global status.
Nazi scientists, some of them tied to war crimes including horrific concentration camp experiments, brought to the U.S. in a secret program to advance American security interests during the Cold War. These were top scientists in the German war effort, sought out by the U.S. military as the war was coming to an end.
That's right. These were Hitler's top weapons makers, and Operation Paperclip became a classified military program to bring them to the United States.
Faced with the grim possibility of facing public trials and probably execution if they got caught, thousands of German scientists made a rather swift and smart decision. They would rather work for the US government, thanks very much, under new identities. In exchange for their freedom, of course, they spilled the beans to their American handlers about the controversial and downright horrible experiments that they had been conducting back in Germany, and even shared how to keep the ball rolling on such ventures. Among the laundry list of hush-hush projects were some seriously out there ideas. Think time travel, mind control, and even dabbling in interdimensional travel. Nichols swore up and down that a bunch of these scientists got stationed over at the Montauk Naval Air Base, where they set up shop in a network of underground labs beneath the main complex. Down there they kept the creepy experiments going, fine-tuning drugs and techniques meant to bend and twist human will, just like they had been ordered to do by their former bosses during the war. And guess what though? This whole shebang was part of yet another infamous CIA program called MK Ultra. But when word got out to the public about what was going down, the whole thing got axed in the 70s. When the grim truth about the MK Ultra program started trickling out, there was a public uproar. People were shocked to hear that some participants had died or taken their own lives because of the substances they had been given. But according to Preston Nichols, what the US Senate got wind of was just the tip of the iceberg. The real deal, he claimed, was way darker. See, these mind-altering drugs were just a small slice of the pie when it came to what was actually happening under Montauk Air Base. Apparently those scientists weren't just playing with chemicals, they were also tinkering with high-frequency radio waves and resorting to downright brutal physical torture to mess with their test subjects' heads. They even used those same methods to wipe clean the memories of the staff who had been on the Montauk project, including Nichols himself. Things took a seriously eerie turn for Nichols in the 1980s. Out of the blue, he started having run-ins with complete strangers who claimed that he was their boss at some sort of top secret government gig. At first he just brushed this off as a prank, or maybe some folks, they were dealing with their own mental issues or got him confused with someone else. But when each person started spouting off the exact same details, Preston couldn't shake off the creeping feeling that something just wasn't right here. These mysterious encounters all had one thing in common. They insisted that Nichols had been the deputy director of something called the Montauk Project, based at an airbase in, you guessed it, the New York district of the same name. Driven by these really strange encounters, Nichols thought to himself, maybe I should go and check this out. So he made the trip to go and check out the site that everyone kept describing. After some convincing, he managed to get a caretaker to let him in. As he cautiously wandered through the empty offices and abandoned hangars, something eerie started to happen. Memories started flooding back to him. Memories that he had never had before. It was like he was watching himself in third person, taking part in these chilling experiments on innocent young subjects. Racing to where he remembered the staircase was and elevators leading to the lower levels, Nichols hit a brick wall. Literally hit a brick wall. Each one had been sealed shut with concrete, blocking any chance of going deeper into the facility. Stepping back outside, he couldn't help but look up at the looming, dilapidated radar dish, its massive 40-foot width dominating the base. And as he gazed up at the dish, the truth hit him like a ton of bricks. This innocuous-looking structure had a much darker purpose than anyone could ever have imagined. As Nichols pieced together his memories, he realised something chilling. That radar dish wasn't just there for show. He and his colleagues had been using it to blast out ultra-high frequency radio waves into the local area, all in the name of science, or so they thought. A trip to the local police station to dig up more information confirmed his worst fears. It turns out the events that he was recalling weren't just figments of his imagination. They had actually happened in the 1980s. One of the officers on duty spilled the beans to him, mentioning that whenever that radar dish started spinning up at the base, things got downright weird in the surrounding areas. People would zone out, standing there like they were in a trance, only snapping out of it minutes later with no recollection of what had just happened. But that wasn't the half of it. There were reports of mass die-offs of local critters like birds falling from the sky like rain, and folks ending up in the ER with pounding headaches and nosebleeds. It was like something straight out of a sci-fi horror flick, except it was actually happening right there in their own backyards. In the darkest depths of the base, another sinister chapter unfolded. Local youths, coerced and blackmailed by CIA agents, found themselves thrust into the twisted experiments conducted in those underground levels. They were starved, beaten, and subjected to brutal mental manipulation by the scientists in charge. Their goal? To see if it was possible to unlock psychic abilities. Stuff like projecting their consciousness to other places, or causing harm to a subject without being physically present. As time went on, Nichols penned more books about his experiences, but with each publication his credibility took a nosedive. Other folks though, they started coming forward, claiming that they too were part of this Montauk project, and like Preston Nichols, they had their memories wiped clean, only to have them resurface later on. It was like a bizarre game of truth or fiction, with each revelation blurring the lines between reality and fantasy. Among those who stepped forward were two guys, one called James Bruce and another called Stuart Swerdlow, who recounted harrowing tales of being snatched up by the military and dragged into the depths of Camp Hero for experimentation.
Special program for you. We're right now here at Camp Hero in Montauk, the site of what many believe to have been the Montauk Project, and I'm joined by a gentleman who has a first-hand recollection of this place, Stuart Swerdlow. Stuart, it's a pleasure for us to have you on our air. I know you've traveled all the way from the Midwest to be part of this program. You're the author of Montauk, the Alien Connection.
But they weren't alone. There were scores of others, test subjects, subjected to starvation, drugging and beatings, all in a twisted quest to unlock hidden powers lurking within their minds. Under the watchful eyes of their captors, these young subjects were pushed to the brink, encouraged to use their minds to harm each other in twisted displays of psychic prowess. And if that wasn't bizarre enough, there were attempts to remotely project their consciousness to far-flung corners of the globe, a skill better known as remote viewing, so they could snoop on the secrets of other nations. That's going to be the topic of another video. But the rabbit hole went even deeper. Al Bielek and Duncan Cameron added their own mind-bending stories into the mix, claiming that they had once served aboard the infamous USS Eldridge, a vessel steeped in tales of time travel and otherworldly experiments. In a desperate bid to escape the fate befalling their fellow crewmates, they made a split-second decision to leap from the ship's deck. Little did they know that this leap would hurl them 40 years into the future, landing them hundreds of miles away inside a hangar at the Montauk facility. Upon arrival, they were roped into the project, spending years assisting scientists in their quest to master portal technology. But their time at the base wasn't all scientific breakthroughs and progress. They claimed to have survived a horrifying incident where something emerged from one of the portals, unleashing chaos and death among their colleagues. This catastrophic event apparently prompted the government to shut down a hidden reactor deep within the base, sealing off all access points to the lower levels with concrete. Just like the other test subjects, their memories were wiped clean, only to gradually resurface over time. It's a mind-bending tale that blurs the lines between science fiction and reality. In the years following the initial tales of the Montauk project, curious souls have ventured into the abandoned airbase in search for the truth. Geological surveys have uncovered intriguing findings, revealing evidence of hidden tunnels and chambers lurking beneath the decrepit buildings. What's more, there are signs of sealed-off stairwells, hinting at secrets buried beneath the surface. Of particular interest, though, is the fine print of the agreement struck with the military. It's been noted that the Park Service was only granted authority over anything visible above the ground. This raises eyebrows, especially considering the lingering presence of the radar tower. Some skeptics suspect that it wasn't left standing as a mere navigational aid, but rather as a key player in ongoing clandestine experiments. The base's strategic location made it a prime spot for amplifying high-frequency signals emitted by other covert facilities scattered across the United States. Some locals even claim that they have spotted the dish spinning long after the airbase officially shut down, with nearby residents still reporting headaches and nausea as a lingering consequence. Despite the far-fetched nature of these claims, there's a glimmer of possibility that as more of America's clandestine military history comes to light, we might stumble upon some validation of these accounts. After all, their stories have already made an undeniable impact on our society, popping up in various works of literature, film and pop culture, and YouTube. In this way, the Montauk project and its alleged CIA cohorts will continue to linger in the public consciousness, forever etching their mark on our collective imaginations. Whether it is all fact or just all fiction, their legacy is woven into the fabric of our cultural landscape, ensuring that the mysteries of Montauk will never truly fade away. So, there you go. What's your thoughts on the Montauk project? Could it all be true? Or is this yet another example of urban legends that's just grown and grown? In any case, please stay safe out there, folks. Tell someone that you love them, and remember, no matter what, keep smiling.